You remember we began yesterday evening by taking some of the sections that were relevant. They were legislative, and now we come to the remainder of the Faith Nurture Forum. The convener, I think, will be in agreement with me that we're taking 2 and 3 when we come to the deliverance. But first of all, convener, thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Rosemary Frew, number 96, Minister of Bowden and Melrose, convener of the Faith Nurture Forum. Moderator, as I present the first report of the Faith Nurture Forum, I can quite honestly say that this is not what I envisaged when I became convener of the new forum. I will confess that my biggest fear on taking up the convenership was addressing the General Assembly. So I did not anticipate being so excited about a day out to the Assembly Hall. I did not imagine making a speech to an almost empty room and a camera. I didn't think I would be meeting up with the people with whom I work most closely for the first time in over 6 months, seeing them in 3D and not on a screen in 2D. The end of 2019 was hard. It was a time of endings. The ending of the Ministries Council and the Mission and Discipleship Council. The ending of responsibilities. The ending of membership of committees and task groups. There was sadness and there was hurt. But there was also excitement about this new thing, this coming together of 2 councils seeking to resource the church to inspire the people of Scotland and beyond with the good news of Jesus Christ. At the last meeting of the Ministries Council, I referenced these words from Little Gidding by T.S. Eliot. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. The 1st of January 2020 was a new beginning. I did some homework back then, reading William Bridges' book on managing transition. There's always a point when the old and new worlds meet, where they have to coexist through the disruption of transition until the new way becomes so integrated that it becomes the norm. I was also struck by this piece of advice: help people share creative metaphors for the change journey. Butterflies became our metaphor for change. At the first meeting of the forum, I used these words of Maya Angelou: "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." We're still going through the disruption of transition. We're still in the cocoon. But there are glimpses of the butterfly, the beauty of the butterfly, beginning to emerge. The New Faith Nurture Forum has a membership of 15, a third former Ministries Council, a third former Mission and Discipleship Council, and a third new members. And this synergy has been good and creative. Staff and forum members have had to adapt quickly to new ways of working. Our report contains words that have peppered our conversations and thinking from the start. Nimble, that's a key word. Robust, travelling light, fleet of foot, trust, greater responsibility. In January and February, we did not appreciate what lay ahead and how quickly we would be actioning these aspirations. In March, when we met to approve our original General Assembly report, we were sent home from the church offices and the door literally closed behind us. The agenda changed completely. Hard decisions had to be made about priorities, work that could continue and work that could not, how it could continue, which staff to be furloughed. With working from home, new skills had to be learned and honed, new ways of working adapted to. And let me say, what an amazing staff team we have. They rose to the challenge. What I've experienced in these last months is the staff and the forum working imaginatively and nimbly to enable important work to carry on in new ways and to resource and support congregations, our candidates, those in ministries, for the fast-changing and stressful environment in which we have found ourselves. Online heart and soul, online assessment conferences for candidates, what next conversations, ascend resources, a worship webinar with the moderator, worship resources, personal support and advice and encouragement as we move forwards. And in the midst of all this, we've been building up relationships, learning about each other, learning more about the task before us, liaising with the Assembly trustees and the Chief Officer. We've addressed the challenge of the budget and priorities. We've made hard decisions. We've worked nimbly and creatively as we've assessed and approved changes to the way we work through regular discussion by email and face-to-face by Microsoft Teams. Our report gives a flavour of the ongoing work of resourcing for ministry and mission, which we've brought from the Ministries and Mission and Discipleship Councils, and which comes with a commitment to keep that ongoing work under constant review. Some of that work we anticipate will devolve in time to the new presbyteries. All of that work should be about resourcing the local church. The big pieces of work which we have highlighted as priorities are not being tackled in isolation, but in partnership with others, as evidenced in the Assembly Trustees' report. We've already heard a lot about presbytery planning today. The Assembly Trustees, the Presbytery Planning Task Group, and the General Trustees are working to produce realistic predictions on the number of ministries that are needed and can be afforded in order to structure the local church for mission and growth. We report that there are now just over 700 ministers in charges, against a target of 850 charges agreed as a result of the planning round of 2012. Movement towards that number of 850 has stalled in the high 900s. As the Assembly Trustees comment in their report, presbytery planning is a key influencer of where we will be as a church in the next 5 to 10 years. And so, as you've heard already, the Forum is working with the General Trustees on developing well-equipped spaces in the right places, and is working with the trustees to produce a toolkit to help presbyteries engage in situations where readjustment will be a necessary part of the restructuring of the local church. Many times over the last 6 months, I have said to my congregation in Bowden and Melrose that church will never be the same again. The reported experience across Scotland has been that whether we've been live streaming or recording, using the telephone or printed resources, we've been reaching far more people than we ever see sitting in the pews on a Sunday morning. As we look to the future, a future with fewer buildings and fewer ministers of word and sacrament, we must continue to explore new ways of being church and build on all our lockdown learnings, be it through the development of learning communities and fresh expressions incubators, or by learning from those on the edge in priority areas and rural areas, or by exploring existing initiatives such as Paths of Renewal and Future Focus, or by financial investment in the equipment needed, This will be a priority for the life of the church in these coming months and years. The potential in the new is transformative and inspiring. The Rethinking of Initial Training Project, RIT, is a big piece of work that came from the Ministries Council and was presented to the General Assembly of 2019. I can inform the Assembly that the tendering part of this work has been laid aside for now, in part as a consequence of the pandemic. The whole project is being reviewed as part of the integrated training programme within the Faith Action Plan, with the focus on growing an inspirational leadership and helping the whole people of God to understand their faith and to share it. And so the decisions we're asking you to make in our deliverance, we're asking the General Assembly to note our progress, approve our priorities, alongside the ongoing work of resourcing for ministry and mission, which comes with that commitment to constant review, joined-up working, and nimble response. We're asking your approval for the review of Heart and Soul and for the transfer of the functions of CARTA, the Committee on Church Art and Architecture, to the General Trustees, along with the discharge of the committee on the 31st of December 2020. There is a notice of motion in my name adding that date to that section of the deliverance. The clerks to the Assembly will update the acts and regulations of the General Assembly as appropriate. We're asking you to note the summary of the work of the predecessor councils, along with our gratitude to those who served on these councils, most particularly the office bearers and staff members who appear in the addendum to our report. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. From this difficult time of transition and change, we hope and pray that a beautiful butterfly will emerge. Moderator, I present the report and move the deliverance.
Seconded.
Thank you, Convener. We're open for questions and discussion. Names before me to begin with are Nicola Sherlaw, followed by Stuart Irvin. Nicola Sherlaw and then Stuart Irvin. Names and numbers, please, when you're ready.
747, Nicola Sherlaw. Good afternoon, moderator. This question is a question to Faith Nurture in regards to young adult engagement. So since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen a rise in the church engaging on digital platforms. However, little has been done to engage nationally, on a national level, with young adults, either specifically or directly. This seems to be a missed opportunity, given the end of National Youth Assembly and lack of current platform for youth, while on the other hand, young adults tend to be highly engaged with digital platforms. Does Faith Nurture have plans to engage on a national level moving forward, or plans to advise churches at a local level? Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Convener.
Thank you for the question. I can tell you that we have a meeting of Faith Nurture next week, and on our agenda and in our paperwork, very large wad of paper, which is really dealing with that exact subject. One of the consequences of the pandemic was that some of our staff were furloughed. That is some of the work that they are hoping to take forward now. I'm also aware the moderator provided many online resources as well, and digital resources, which I consider were for the younger ones as well as the older ones. But we take on board what you're saying, and I can give you that assurance that that work is being looked at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. A reminder that this is questions at this point. Stuart Irvin, thank you.
Moderator, Stuart Irvin, number 9 from
Edinburgh Presbytery, a question that I've given the convener advance notice about regarding the Ascend platform. As a parish minister, I really value the Ascend platform and the support that it brings to myself and that is available there. It stayed up to date and relevant even through the changing season that we found. I was confused though as to why it only got an indirect reference in the report. So I would like to ask the convener what place the Ascend platform has in the future vision for equipping inspirational leaders and disciples, and will the scope of this be broadened for lay leaders within the Church of Scotland in the changing dynamic that we find ourselves in?
Thank you to Stuart for the question, which he did give me advance notice of, and we have had a discussion actually in that time, and I've also been discussing with the folks at Ascend. So thank you for the kind words about Ascend. Our staff have been trying really hard to keep engaged with those in ministry throughout the land, and ministry, lay and full-time ministry of Word and Sacrament, our MDS workers, the whole range of ministries, trying to keep in contact throughout these difficult and challenging times. So yes, there are a wonderful range of resources on Ascend and many opportunities that have come from Ascend for people to engage with. And I've been told to give a plug for the latest one, which is all about resilience and well-being. Ministers were made well aware of this in the last couple of weeks, so please do sign up. There are still some spaces available. I took on board what Stuart said in the discussion that we had, and we have actually broadened the scope of Ascend just in the last week or two. We've added some signposts onto the website just to encourage people to explore other places. I can also say that Ascend is available for everyone. If you're on the front page of the church website, if you click on resources and then click on Ascend, you get into this wonderful range of resources and signposting. So please do have a look. It is very much to the forefront of our work. It is a very valuable resource. And as we develop work alongside the Chief Officer on the learning programme for the whole church, I think the scope of Ascend will broaden even further.
Thank you, Convener Roddy MacDonald, followed by Stella Campbell.
Thank you, Moderator. Roddy MacDonald, 186. This is a time when we must use our resources wisely. With the current shortage of ministers of Word and Sacrament, has any consideration been made of restricting the positions of clerks in the church at each level to be filled by members of laity? We have many well-equipped members of the church who could fulfil such clerical, executive, administrative posts as employees of the church, therefore freeing up those who are called to ministry from positions as presbytery clerks, etc. Has this been considered?
I think I would have to say that it's not a consideration that belongs with the Faith Nurture Forum. It's up to presbyteries to appoint their clerk. I know as we move to the bigger presbyteries, many of these clerks' positions are going to be full-time. I know that there are some being advertised at the moment, and they are open to anyone with the relevant experience to apply. It's not something that we can advise on, I don't think, but the opportunities are there, and I know as a former clerk, I know that training is well provided by George and his team. And as we move forward with bigger presbyteries, the challenge of the clerkship will get bigger and more challenging. So there is no bar on anyone applying, would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Convener. Stella Campbell, to be followed by Robert Allen. And then I think we will move to the numbers of the deliverance, and other people will speak to particular sections. First of all, Stella.
Moderator Stella Campbell, 565. Return to the topic of presbytery planning and a question about time frame. Firstly, can the convener give us a time frame for the much talked about toolkit, or even an indication of when that might be available? And secondly, in the appendix to the report, there was a discussion about a replacement of the hub experiment with something else. Given that the hub experiment had led to some discussion of changes within legislation to do with presbytery planning. Can the convener give an indication of when its replacement might become available for those involved with presbytery planning?
Okay. In terms of the numbers and in terms of the toolkit, this is ongoing work. So I can say that work in the toolkit is well underway. It's happening as we speak. Just an update on where we are with predicting ministry numbers. We have a WhatsApp group for Faith Nurture, so we have been exchanging information all morning. So that work on the numbers is again happening as we speak, making use of the most up-to-date statistics and the most up-to-date predictions on retirement, etc. So we would hope to have that information out very much sooner rather than later. I'm not going to put a timescale on it, but it is work that is ongoing and we see it as priority. So that's in terms of these resources. In terms of the hub scheme, I'm just going to look at
Angus Matheson, 12, Interim Head of Faith Nurture. We've been working very closely with the General Trustees as well as with the Assembly Trustees in an augmented presbytery planning task group, trying to bring together a close focus to the task of presbytery planning. With regards to the numbers, there was conversation about that earlier today, and we look forward to working with the Assembly Trustees in terms of financial affordability. The reality, though, is that the challenge to the church is to grow the church, not to live with austerity. And we fall down if we equate church with paid ministry. There are a number of vacant congregations in the country, as we're all too well aware. I think the longest vacancy is heading for 20 years. And so that's the proof that the life of the church is not dependent, albeit that the paid ministers of Word and Sacrament and MDSs and all those who exercise ministry in the church and the recognised ministries, non-stipendiary, OLM, auxiliary and readers. The challenge is, how can we grow the church? How can we live with that as our primary calling? We work closely with the General Trustees. The advisory numbers were presented to the General Assembly in 2018. And while the membership of the church is reducing 4% year on year, those advisory numbers are ones that provide a useful benchmark for us to work with, although they will not be the final definitive version. So we'd advise you to look to that. We will look to bring more definitive information. Part of that conversation was reported earlier today, and we would bring that to the General Assembly in May of next year, in whatever shape that General Assembly will be. But equally, we also want to engage with presbytery planning conveners between now and then. Later in this report, there will be some conversation about the content of the Act on presbytery planning. For some of us, it trips off the tongue as Act 8, 2003. I'm hoping I've got that right, Principal Clerk. He's having to look for it as well.
Presbytery planning is Act 7, 2003.
Act 7, 2003.
Nearly right.
One out. So I hope that offers an answer to your questions, Stella. Thank you.
Moderator, can I just say, in terms of hub ministry, we're encouraging our presbyteries to be imaginative. Congregations and presbyteries to be imaginative. There's nothing out of bounds, you know. Use your imagination and what's right for you and for your setting and for your people, and share the ideas that you come up with. And in discussion with the principal clerk, you know, there are ways of making things work if you have a really good idea. So don't be afraid to dream and to imagine and to, think out the box, new ways that we can serve the church in our land.
Thank you, Angus, and thank you, Convener. Robert Allen.
Robert Allen, 386. Moderator, I've got two questions, if that's possible. The second question has a little bit of comment before it, so I'm in your hands if you'll allow that at this stage. But my first question is, basically, I note with pleasure that the Faith Nurture Forum is increasing funding for candidates in the light of financial hardship. And I wonder if the convener could say a little more about the £15,000 payment per annum. Is this paid to all candidates, all full-time candidates, and will it form a part of this single integrated programme that's being worked towards?
Do you know?
Matheson 012. Moderator, the funding for candidates, the £15,000 referred to in the report, will be paid to candidates who, whether they're training for full-time ministry of Word and Sacrament or diaconal ministry, and it will run along the term of the academic year. Could you remind me of the second part of your question, Mr. Allen?
Single integrated programme that's being worked towards.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you again, Convener and Angus. Now, I am not aware of anybody else wanting to speak generally, but remember, questions can come up at any time. So I'm proposing that we move now to the deliverance. I can stand corrected if necessary, but I think we will be dealing with sections 2 and 3, and then 14, 15 and 16. So first of all, on 2, I invite Dan Harper to speak. Thank you, Dan. Name and number, as always.
Dan Harper, number 413. I apologise. I think this should have come in as a question with those others. It won't surprise anybody to know my question is in general terms about what's happening in ministry, but in particular to section 7.1 and 7.1, 1, 2 and 3. Thank you for the clear answers so far on presbytery planning. But I just want to clarify a few things. We were told by the convener that in 2012 it was looked at around 900 charges. In 2012 we then said, right, no, we've got to get to 850, and we're recognising we've got 700 odd ministers, and it's all a bit of a mess. And we know that the toolkit's coming soon, and we know numbers are coming soon, but we also know that in Presbyterianism soon can mean something a little more nebulous than next week. As Angus Matheson noted, that we should be working towards, and we're given guidance in the 2018 paper, and the table he referred to is on page 36 of the ministry's report. So I would like clarity on how we're supposed to be doing the actual work of presbytery planning, how we're supposed to be responsible, radical and reasonable in reducing all that we need to get through. Are we looking at the charges in 2012 and saying not 20% off, which takes us down to about 680, or another 10% off that, which takes us down to 600? Should we be looking at column H in that, which is where the situation was for ministries at that point in 2018? Or should we be looking at column I in that table, which is where we're predicted for those under 65 in 2023? This is all really difficult, and I'm not asking for an exact answer, but I'm asking that we get significant guidance as presbytery planners, because we're being told to do important radical action, and we have been for a number of years now, and none of us are able to say apples and apples, because some places say, let's take the hard route, and some places say, let's stick our fingers in our ears and ignore it. This is difficult, but we need firm guidance now to be able to be getting on with doing the work. So can I ask the convener or Angus Matheson if they could offer that clarity, please, with an actual amount that we can be working towards as a percentage or whatever else, or the column in that 2018 paper, to be looking at what we should be working towards as presbytery planners. Thank you.
Convener.
Moderator. Column H is the advisory figure which we were asking presbyteries to work towards. I think if we go back a couple of years, the first thing we were told, well, it's about a 20% reduction on the numbers in your presbytery plan. I think we recognise it's far more than a 20% reduction. What we are having to work on at the moment is what is affordable in terms of full-time ministry of Word and Sacrament. And these are these are the sums that are being done at the moment, but we are in these really difficult times. We don't know what the future's looking like. So that's where it becomes difficult to give you a definite answer. But yes, I would be looking at column H because that's probably the closest to the answer that I can give you. What I would say, though, is the last few months have changed the church forever. And we are seeing how we do ministry, how we do church in a completely different way. So we've torn up much of the rule book, and I hope that we use our lockdown learnings to think more radically about how we can serve the people of Scotland, how we can be church for them, and whether that is full-time ministers, or whether that is a pioneer ministry, or whether that is some form of new expression. I think we have to be imaginative and we have to be radical. And I would encourage you to do that. We can sometimes get so fixated on numbers. But please, in discussion with your congregations, what have you learned and how can you take that forward and how can we do this new thing in the future? And yes, column H is your answer.
Thank you, Convener. One more on this section is Graham Astles. Graham Astles, please.
Number 70. I welcome the comments by Mr. Matheson and the convener about the importance of being flexible and, that we should be imaginative and, creative. And I think that's really important. However, there is the issue of legislation that we have not really addressed, notably the legislation to allow multiple ministers to be ministers over multiple charges, which to my knowledge, unless it's changed over the last wee while, and I hadn't noticed it, is still, one minister and one or two charges, or a number of charges. And that legislation really needs to happen if we're going to allow things like hubs or similar kind of creative solutions to be proposed. And it's always been a sticking point from way back in the times of, parish groupings. And is there a project or something to look at, that nature of call and how we open that up somewhat to allow for more creative things to actually be done? It's good to say be creative, but if we're stopped by legislation, then that kind of makes it a bit of a moot point. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Moderator. I'm going to ask the Principal Clerk to reply to this one because I know he has been involved in the work surrounding this.
We have developed some legislative possibilities around multiple charges and in one place. And I've been hoping for a while perhaps to persuade our forums to take these things forward. But I think it is feasible with not a lot of change to current legislation to allow a team of people to be called to a larger setting. And presbyteries, I think, could work with it almost within what we have just now, with a bit of expert guidance, and create something. And I think, for instance, the new parish of Shetland reflects that, where there's 3 ministers and 3 MDS posts.
Thank you, Principal. Thank you, Principal Clerk. Angus.
Matheson, number 12. People may well be aware that the principle already exists where people can be jointly inducted to one charge. There is currently a husband and wife ministering together in a charge in Kirkcaldy Presbytery, soon to be the Presbytery of Fife. There have been other instances of people who are not married to each other ministering jointly in a congregation in Edinburgh. So the principle about people serving alongside each other within one charge already exists and has been allowed for within the church's legislation. How we develop that and re-examine it picking up on the Principal Clerk's points, is one of the areas that we are optimistic about exploring in the coming months and reporting back to the 2021 General Assembly.
Thank you, Angus. I'm going to take Robert Allen then. I propose that we vote on 2 and move to 3 into the remainder of the deliverance. Robert?
Robert Allen, 386. Moderator, if I may say a word about Pioneer Ministries that's mentioned in the report and make a request, if that's possible, of the convener. It mentions in the report that Pioneer Ministries are being evaluated as a resource for the future working of the church. In Falkirk Presbytery, we have seen the birth and growth of Sanctuary First Pioneer Ministry under the leadership of former moderator Albert Bogle. Sanctuary First has flourished over the last 5 years and has grown even more in the last 6 months with its online ministry, reaching thousands of people in Scotland and indeed worldwide. Sanctuary First has the very real possibility of being a great resource for the whole church as we step into the future of modern communication. Folk may already know something about Sanctuary First through Albert's regular contributions to life and work. Time does not allow me to go into great detail here in this short assembly, nor am I seeking to move any motions about this. I would simply ask the convener if the Faith Nurture Forum would be willing to include Sanctuary First in its review of Pioneer Ministries to ascertain its value and place in the Church of Scotland going forward.
Thank you, Robert. Convener?
The answer very simply is yes. Robert and I had this discussion during the week and I gave him that assurance that we will evaluate Albert's work. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. We move to vote on 2, to accept it or otherwise. Many of you have voted already. That's quite in order. If you haven't, then now is the moment. Voting is open on section 2 of the deliverance. Given that many of you had already voted, I can quickly declare that it is carried. We move to 3, which refers to Heart and Soul Review. I have a request from Brian Kerr to speak on Heart and Soul. Name and number, please, Brian.
Moderator Kerr, 199. I don't want to let this motion go through without expressing thanks to those I declare an interest that I convened after you rudely left the convenership of Heart and Soul for some other gig that you got last October. But I want to say thank you to everyone who's played a part in Heart and Soul over these years. It's been a terrific way that we can meet with church members, we can celebrate the life of the church, and we can also showcase some of that to Scotland as well. After this year's event, where we knew it was scheduled to take a break, we as a board went to the Assembly of Trustees, because at that point that was where budgets were coming from, to actually request that we, over the course of this pandemic, put on another 2 or 3 Heart and Soul online after the success of the one in May. That was approved and in fact is in the Assembly Trustees report that came out in June of this year. Sadly, we've heard nothing from either body since then. It may just be they don't want to speak to me. That's absolutely fine. But there are some other really talented people there that were ready to put on some events. These events in the middle of a pandemic would have brought some hope to the church, would have brought a window that we could showcase what we were doing, that we were still here. And as the media keeps telling us that actually Christmas is going to be cancelled, surely we've got to be the ones that stand up and say, no, it's not. It's our story and we are going to tell it. We need to have some public-facing event for Christmas. And I can think of no better than Heart and Soul. The Assembly Trustees approved the budget. I hope that in the spirit of cooperation, that when staff are stretched to the limit, they can reach out and use these volunteers, use the resources that we've built up over the years to provide a way that we can tell the Christmas story, that we can celebrate church and Christmas together as a church. I would like to say a huge thank you, finally, moderator, to John from Oscars Media and Neil from Sanctus and all their teams for everything that they have done over the years. I hope this is not the end. I don't believe it should be the end, but I hope that this Christmas especially, we will be bold enough to say, let heart and soul once again bring the heart and soul into Christmas for our church and our nation.
Thank you, Brian. I passed it over to you at the end, knowing full well that if it was a success, I could claim much of the credit, and if it flopped, you were the fall guy. So there's no other request to speak on it, therefore we vote on 3. Can I ask the vote to be made live? It now is. This is on 3. Voting on 3. Then we will move to 14. All other sections in between having been dealt with last night. Three carries. So we come to 14. There are new sections, but we have various people looking to speak on 14. First of all, I'm beginning with Barbara Sushanik Seitz, and then we will go to Donald McEwen and Dan Harper in that order. Barbara, unmute please and name and number. We are not as yet hearing you. Do you have an invitation to unmute? Not hearing anything. I'll wait for instructions. Might well be we can advance one of the others in the meantime. I'll be guided. Yep, I've got you. So I understand we are sending unmute requests through to Barbara, but it would appear that Barbara is not seeing them at her end and is able to use them. Can we go to Donald McEwen next, and then hopefully in the meantime continue to work to get Barbara live. Donald, are you ready to speak? If so, name and number, please.
Moderator, I'm Donald McEwen at 737, and I'm the convener of the Theological Forum. I wish to draw Commissioner's attention, Moderator, to work in this report on education and training. I don't know if the page number is terribly helpful, but at 7.3 at page 22, I'd like to read out one of the sentences. The reduction in candidate numbers in recent years has been recognised by previous General Assemblies and has to be seen against a backdrop of 5 different academic partners offering different approaches in different subjects. Moderator, I want to offer a comment and then an offer to the Faith Nurture Forum. The comment is that this sentence could be slightly misleading if it implies or is seen to imply that the reduction in candidate numbers is in some sense the result of there being 5 different academic partners. It seems to me that that couldn't be a connection there, and the reduction in candidate numbers has much more to do with secularism, the diminution in the influence and numbers of people in the Church of Scotland, and various other very important reasons. Furthermore, the fact that the different academic partners have offered different approaches isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not sure the academic partners would necessarily agree that they have offered different subjects. Broadly, they offer in divinity degrees the usual things that one finds in divinity degrees. That's merely a comment. The offer I want to make is that the Faith Nurture programme and Faith Nurture Forum, in developing a single integrated training programme, continue to receive support from the Theological Forum. We've really enjoyed contributing to the Rethinking initial training so far. I hope our comments and contributions have been helpful. I know that work has been assisted for now. We'd really love to continue to help. So Rosie and whoever is taking this on, we're there for you. Don't forget us. We'd love to support you. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald, and I'm sure that's heard.
Absolutely, and there are others now. RIT has gone far bigger. We're now the integrated training programme, and yes, that is being heard across the board by Assembly trustees as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. I want to clarify if we have Barbara able to contribute to the debate now or otherwise. Okay, we have not been able to get you, Barbara. We are sending unmute requests. They're not coming through. Barbara, I'm being asked to invite you to leave the webinar and then rejoin. Now, given that may take a few moments, I wonder if we might take up some of these new sections that follow and then return.
Moderator, is she able to send the question through the chat?
He's withdrawn. The answer to that, Rosie, is no, they don't think that's possible.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to just pause for a moment longer, Barbara. We really run into problems if we're not able to deal with you now and then have to come back to it. And so if we're not able to get you, then I'm really sorry. I'm not sure we've got an alternative. A final suggestion, Barbara, that if you're able to switch off your video, possibly we'll hear your audio. But failing that, I think I'm very sorry that we will have to move on. So, Barbara, if you're still there, we would hear you if you were able to speak now. I'm going to have to assume that we've not been able to get Barbara live, which is a great shame. I apologise to you, Barbara, if you are still able to hear me, but I think we have no alternative at this point other than to move to vote on 14, following the discussions we've had, and then to take up the new sections. 14 is now open to vote on. I declare it carries. We have 3 new sections. I'm going to take them in the order I have them. David Cameron, Tara Shannon, and Mark McEwen. First of all, David Cameron. David, name and number, please.
Moderator, David Cameron, 004, and I'm speaking in relation to Deliverance 14, and in particular section 7.3, education and training. Just simply to say, I really welcome the prospect of a wide-ranging programme of education and training emerging through the life of the church. What seems to be alluded to, from what I can glean from the short references to it within
David, can I pause you for one moment? We have you proposing a new section rather than addressing 14, which has now carried. Can I ask you to clarify your intent, please?
Yes, I think when I indicated when I submitted my proposal, it was a new item under section 14, and that question was asked of me, and I filled in the appropriate section.
Okay, so is a new section being proposed? Can you continue? Thank you, David.
Thank you. Yep, just to say, really welcome this, and looking forward to seeing what it looks like. What seems to be alluded to within the relatively limited insights that are given in the papers is training for ministry, not just at a national level, but also regional and local church levels. And my question is, might the forum undertake a fresh look at the nature and the description of the ministry of the church? Now, that may seem a huge task, and I'm not looking for it to be such a huge task. I'm just wanting to give to the forum the ability to undertake a fresh look at the nature and description of the ministries of the church. The reason I feel that such a fresh look would be helpful is because when people undertake training at national, regional and local levels, oversight and opportunities then for ministry are needed at national, regional and local levels. Such a fresh look during this season of radical reform might then help us provide the varieties of ministries needed for the growth and the flourishing of the church. This, given the challenges we know we're going to face, as statistically ministerial numbers are plummeting. Some of the seeming anomalies in our current structures at this present time in the way we describe our ministries are things such as the existence of readers who do more than read, ministers of word and sacrament who aren't the only ones who offer the ministry of word and sacrament, ordained local ministers who operate across presbyteries, and something more akin to ordained regional ministers. And we're about to embark upon encouraging the development and the flourishing of education and training at a local congregational level, I trust, through this programme being proposed. So what I would suggest is that this provides an opportunity for the forum to take a fresh look at our national, our regional and our local ministries, how we describe those and what the nature of them are. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The new section is before you. Is it seconded, first of all? It is seconded. Questions, discussion around this proposed new section? I've no notices. Convener, would you respond?
Moderator, we're not minded to accept this. I agree with everything that David is saying. Yeah, we have this plethora of different ministries. We refer to the ministry of the whole people of God. We are looking at lots of different things already at the moment. We're doing a review of the diaconate. You've heard already that we are going to be looking at pioneer ministry as well. We're part of the learning programme, so this is a whole new piece of work which is for the whole church, and as it unpacks will be a learning programme accessible by all, and as you develop through it, then there will be different opportunities for ministries. So this is very much a piece of work we're at the beginning of. We're working across all the boards. So this is really joined up working with everybody. So it's massive. And because of that, and there is so much already on our plate that really we do not want to accept another piece of work. Appreciate what's behind it, but we're saying no thank you.
Thank you, Convener. It's for the Assembly to decide. It's the new section being proposed by David Cameron. Voting is open, I understand. Are still voting on David Cameron's proposed new section. So I'm told that the vote has disappeared from screens back home. It should reappear quickly. A number of you have already voted, others have not had opportunity. I'm hoping it will be back very shortly. Quick arithmetic suggests that most people have voted. Tech team, can you advise me where we are? Going to declare the vote closed. It looks to me numerically like most votes are here. In terms of the new section, they're voted for at 188 and against it 278, and so it falls. Thank you. With two other new sections, one in the name of Tara Shannon and one in the name of Mark McEwen. I understand that the convener is prepared to accept them, so this may save us an amount of time. I'm prepared to see Tara on screen for her to let me know she's content with that her new section is going to be accepted, and then I'll hear the same from Mark. Tara?
Moderator, Tara Shannon, 746. I'm happy that the convener is accepted, so I don't feel like the need to talk.
Tara, very gracious of you. Thank you very much indeed. So
Moderator, could I just make one comment to Tara, just to assure her that the church is just about to launch a listening project, and the voices of all those who have something to say about lockdown experience will be sought. So this is something that yes, those under 40, the young people in our churches, we would love you to be part of this and to hear your experiences. So just watch out for that. I'm going live on the 12th of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and to Tara. So we vote. I need it seconded, first of all. This is Tara's proposed new section. Is it seconded? It has been seconded. No further debate required, but we will want to vote on it. It's before you now. Voting is open on Tara's new section. I declare it to be carried. New section in the name of Mark McEwen. Mark, I have indicated the convener is willing to accept on behalf of the forum. Are you satisfied with that, Mark?
I'm delighted that the convener is willing to accept and happy not to speak to it. I have arranged a seconder, Mrs. Fiona Crawford, number 254.
Thank you, Mark, again for your willingness to assist us, and to your seconder. It's been seconded. Convener, any brief remarks or to be left?
Just a very brief remark. I mean, the Act as it stands does already allow for conversations to be had about adjustments to a charge with the written consent of the Minister in the charge, and that includes those in unrestricted charges. This is from our Presbytery planning team. These conversations can be challenging, but there's still a means to pursue positive developmental and supported change and reconfiguration of a presbytery plan. So the possibilities are there already, but we will take on board this new section.
Thank you, Rosie. So we vote on the new section in Mark's name. Voting is open. I declare it to be carried. Thank you. Come to 15. I have a request to speak from Sandy Horsburgh in relation to number 15.
Hello, Moderator. Sandy Horsburgh, number 76. I think there's been a wee mistake. I was hoping to have opposed Mark McKeon's addendum, or amendment rather, but the time has passed. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Sandy, and apologies that if we were not able to have you in on time. Thank you anyway. So we take 15, and we have an amendment in the name of the convener in relation to 15. Convener?
Yeah, it's purely just to put the date of 31st December 2020, an oversight. So we had to put a date. So thank you.
Seconded? Thank you. Seconded in the hall. Discussion? Questions? I see none, and so we move to vote on that very simple amendment, just to add the date. Yeah. I'm not seeing the voting screen. Perhaps that's the case for commissioners as well. We're working on that right now. We're just waiting to make the vote live to you. I know these things seem very, very straightforward. Ordinarily, of course, in the hall, a rumble of feet and we move on. But we're not able to assume when you're not here, and so we have to work through the process before us. The vote's now live on 15. Thank you for our tech people. They're working incredibly hard behind the scenes against the odds in some senses and doing a great job. 15 is open to vote. Sorry, the new section in the convener's name to add the date. I declare it to carry. and now 15 as amended with the new date. You see that in the print there. I declare it to carry. That is 15 as amended. We come to 16, the final of the sections of the deliverance.
Moderator, there's a new 15 still to Bethany Pringle. Youth Attitude Survey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's appeared to me too now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're happy to accept this. The only comment I would make, there's a date in it of March 2021. If we could get a little bit of leeway on that. This is work that has been started and got stopped during furlough. There's a kind of ongoing discussion with comms about the best way to present this material to make it as useful for the church and as user-friendly. So very much the work is being done and it is in the pipeline, but please don't hold us to March 2021 just in case.
Thank you, Convener. Bethany, you've heard that what you're proposing will be accepted in the light of those comments. Are you happy with that? Name and number, please.
Bethany Pringle, 745. Thank you, moderator. Yes, I'm happy with that.
Again, thank you. I need to know if it's seconded. This is Bethany's proposed new section. Seconded. Thank you. Discussion? There are no notices, and so we move to vote on this new section. The vote is open. I declare it to be carried. Bethany and those others who brought these new sections, please don't take it that our speed was anything to do with lack of interest. On the contrary, thank you for your thoughtfulness and for bringing these things to us. So we've dealt with the new section there. We come to 16. Can I open the vote, please, on 16? Voting now open. Okay, so you'll know now, folks, that when there's a gap, generally some technical hitch. The hub had gone down for a moment to commissioners. It was not available to you at home. I think it might now be resolved. There are a large number have voted. Okay. Can you advise me, Michael, if 16 is, if the hub's available again? There are lots of votes on my screen. (16) carries. And the deliverance as a whole. Voting is open. It carries. Deliverance as a whole. Thank you. Rosie, convener, thank you for today and last night and for all the work of the forum in these very challenging times. Please convey to all of the members of the forum and to all of the staff concerned our very best wishes for all the days to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moderator. Thank you.